Hey guys, this is Zone of Fear bringing you a PlanetSide 2 gameplay commentary video courtesy of Shaz1874, who's been very kind enough to let me use his channel to sort of discuss PlanetSide 2 and what I think of it so far. So, PlanetSide 2, for those of you that don't know, PlanetSide 2 is quite an eagerly anticipated game, a sequel to a game that came out nearly 10 years ago now. And what PlanetSide 2 is it's very much alike Battlefield in some respects, except unlike Battlefield, this war is always raging. So when you log off, the war still continues. What you do is you fight over resources, you fight over bases, and other things like that. The first PlanetSide was fantastic. I had a lot of fun playing the first PlanetSide. Back then it was a subscription-based game, which means that you had to sort of pay a monthly fee to play it. But I quite happily paid that fee because the game itself was so good. I got a lot of hours out of PlanetSide 1, and I was very looking forward to PlanetSide 2 when it was officially announced. Sort of keeping an eye out on all the sources I could find about PlanetSide 2. So now that it's finally out, I'm actually really excited about this. Graphically, it's very good looking, and the gameplay is also very, very similar to the first PlanetSide, which is what I loved about the first PlanetSide in the first place. Sony have finally lifted the NDA that was on PlanetSide 2, so finally it's okay to talk about it, share videos, share comments, etc, etc. We're actually able to go into detail about the game now without breaking any sort of NDA, which we agreed upon when we entered the PlanetSide 2 beta. Okay, so first of all, if you're looking to get into the PlanetSide 2 beta, the game itself is very system heavy. You're going to need a good machine to actually run this beta. It's not very optimized right now, and even I'm having some problems with certain things with the game. Whenever I sort of enter really large battles, my sort of performance just takes a massive drop. So to actually run this game, you're going to need a really good PC, and what Sony have suggested as a minimum requirement is a Core 2 Duo processor or an AMD Phenom 2X2 processor. However, a lot of people on dual cores are saying that they're still having a problem with this game on dual cores. So, ideally, the more cores you have, the better the game is going to perform. Sony also recommend a minimum of 4 GB of memory, 15 GB on your hard drive, and a video card that is an NVIDIA GeForce 8600 GT or ATI 4850 card or higher in performance to actually run this game. I'm using a Phenom 2X6 processor with 8 GB of RAM and an NVIDIA GeForce 8800 GT 512 MB. So I passed the minimum specifications aside from the graphics card by some margin. The graphics card that I'm using is better than what Sony suggests. However, it's getting a little bit old now, so it suffers a little bit. Sony recommend that to run the PlanetSide 2 beta, you should be using an Intel i5 processor or higher, or AMD Phenom X6 or higher processor with 8 GB of RAM, an NVIDIA GeForce 500 series or higher, or a HD 6870 or higher with 1024 MB of video RAM. So as you can see, you're going to need a really decent PC to actually be able to play this in any sort of shape or form. However, if you do match any of the requirements that I've just mentioned, then you're in for a treat. PlanetSide 2 is shaping up to be really good. There are a couple of things about it right now which do need sorting out. I'm not a huge fan of the bullet damage. Right now it is really easy to kill an enemy. It doesn't take many rounds, and it's kind of the opposite of what PlanetSide 1 was. PlanetSide 1 had quite a high sort of time to kill on it, whereas PlanetSide 2 it's very low time to kill. So once you start pointing at an enemy, they're going to be dead very fast. In PlanetSide 1, you sort of had to take down your enemy with accurate fire. However, Sony have said that they realise that it kind of plays like a big Battlefield right now, and that's not what they're looking for the game. So hopefully Sony have taken on board all the sort of feedback that have been given to them so far, about the bullet damage and will adjust it accordingly, so you don't just seem to drop dead after being shot in the toe by a pistol from a mile away. Also, game performance isn't fantastic right now. Moving into large battles seems to bring your whole PC down whenever you move into large battles, and I'm not entirely sure why that is, because using sort of hardware programs on my PC, I can tell that not everything's being used, so there's definitely some room for optimization there, especially when it comes to quite large battles. In terms of gameplay, the game itself is based around sort of a really huge, well, in this case, island, and 3 different factions fight over this island: the Vanu Sovereignty, the Terran Republic, and the New Conglomerate. And each of these factions is fighting for bases and so forth, and the more you control, the more resources your empire is able to sort of bring in for you to be able to deploy more forces. One of the things that you've got to do in PlanetSide 2 is, when you get the resources, it costs resources to deploy things like tanks, ATVs, Liberator bombers, and everything like that. So the more you control, the quicker you'll be able to purchase these things for your faction and then go further into battle and do all the same again. There's quite a large variety of vehicles right now. For the aircraft, you have from the Vanu side, you have the Scythe, the Liberator bomber, and the Galaxy. The Galaxy is basically like a massive transport ship. It can fit quite a few people in, and you sort of fly it over an enemy base, and you can drop something like 11, 12 people over the enemy base in this Galaxy. It takes a lot of punishment, but it's not very well armed. So one of the things that you see quite often is that usually the Galaxy will be escorted by one of the sort of fighters, one of the Scythes for the Vanu, or a Liberator. It'll be escorted by one of these things to provide support against enemy aircraft. In this video, I'm playing as the Vanu. I always play as the Vanu. It was a faction that I used in PlanetSide 1, and it's a faction that I'm going to use in PlanetSide 2 as well. And I don't really have any intentions of changing that. So from that point, I've not played any of the other factions. I've only played as Vanu because I think that the weapons are cool. I think the vehicles are cool. I quite like the Vanu, and I'll continue to play Vanu. So I can't quite speak about the game from a sort of a New Conglomerate or Terran Republic side. But PlanetSide 2 rather, Battlefield. But PlanetSide 2's vehicles for the Vanu are really cool looking. A few times I go out, sort of onto the third-person camera, and you can see how cool they look. You can also, as well as vehicles, you can also choose different loadouts as well if you want to stay on the ground. You use your things like your combat medic, your engineer, your light assault, your infiltrators, and so forth. What you can also be though is you can select the max loadout, which is a really powerful infantry loadout. Your speed that you run at isn't as quick as if you picked any of the other sort of loadouts, like the combat medic or anything else like that. However, the max loadout packs a punch. It can do a lot of damage very quickly to both infantry and vehicles. So if you're sort of assaulting a base, you'd use a max to try and do as much damage as you can to enemy defences, enemy vehicles, and enemy infantry. Also, the other classes, they wind up quite well as well with what they can do. The engineer can deploy a turret which can be placed pretty much anywhere, within reason, and you can focus fire on enemy targets on the turret as well. And that is actually quite useful for when you're defending areas. When you're actually defending a base, you can place a couple of turrets around the place and keep it pointed at the enemy. So as well as the turrets that each base has, you also have engineers with the ability to create makeshift turrets that are quite powerful as well. When it comes to capturing a base, it's very reminiscent of Battlefield in that you've got to sort of hack the facility and then control certain points in the base. Kind of like Conquest on Battlefield. You have to control all the points, and eventually the base goes down and it becomes your base. You capture the base, but attacking a base is a lot harder than defending a base. And if you're actually attacking a base, then you can expect a really good fight, and most of the time you're probably going to fail actually taking the base, because once the empires sort of get wind that your faction is mounting a big assault on a base, they usually defend it quite hard. Graphically, PlanetSide 2 looks really nice, especially for a game that is set on such a large scale. There are a few problems with textures, like some of the ground doesn't always appear as it should, but it is a very nice looking game. It's PlanetSide 1 was a good looking game when it came out sort of 9-10 years ago, and PlanetSide 2 kind of follows in the same thing, in that it looks great even in such an early beta stage. The battles that I played here were kind of small scale. The server didn't seem that busy when I actually went on it, so the battles that I took part in this video aren't as big as some of the battles that I've actually seen going on. And once your sort of team, once your faction really works together, the game comes into its own. There is nothing like it available right now. You can be charging towards a like a Terran base. You'll have skies and liberators flying above you. You'll have a convoy of tanks heading towards it. And it is fantastic. When everyone works together, the game is unbeatable, even in its current form. Hopefully Sony will address the issues with sort of performance on PCs, as it is a beta and it is quite an early beta, and also address the sort of issues with bullet damage that I have right now. The bullet damage one is probably, for me, the most important part of the game. I don't like dying immediately to some guy, who hit me once as I was running around a corner, sort of just caught me. So I hope that they really do fix that. The time to kill definitely needs to be made higher. See, the way I see it, with games that have a high time to kill, it requires a lot more skill to actually play, because you have to concentrate your fire more on the target for longer, so you have to be accurate to get your kill. Whereas a game with low bullet damage, generally, as long as you get a few hits out of, sort of like 30, you're fine, you'll get the kill. And that kind of encourages sort of like epic spraying. Battlefield 3 is very similar in that, that respect, that as long as you sort of land a few rounds, you're going to get the kill, and all you really have to do is sort of spray from the hip, which doesn't really sort of reward the ability to aim very much. So hopefully Sony will take a look at the bullet damage and increase it, I don't know, a couple of times over. Even if the bullet damage was twice, or even if the time to kill was twice as high as it is now, it would be better. But obviously you really need to be very careful about how you balance sort of time to kill. Too long and it's not going to work out great. Too short and people aren't really going to keep much interest in a game which, on this scope, is you can't really have a low time to kill on a game like this, because nobody's going to want to spawn, run for 15 minutes towards the nearest sort of battle point, get hit in the leg and die, and then do it all again, waste another 15 minutes getting there. So hopefully Sony will address that very quickly. PlanetSide 2's vehicles actually handle really nice. My favourite vehicle so far is the Vanu Scythe. It's a sort of light fighter that is very good in its role at sort of air combat. I like how it controls. I like how smooth that you're able to do things with it, and also it comes with the ability to use an afterburner. So if you want to climb up rapidly, use the afterburner. If you want to get away from somewhere quickly, use the afterburner. One of the things about PlanetSide 2 as well is that you can upgrade vehicles individually in the game. So if you find that your turret doesn't do an awful lot of damage, you can upgrade it and it'll do even more damage. Sony have said repeatedly that PlanetSide 2 isn't going to be pay to win, so I'm really looking forward to how Sony sort of keep to that. I realise they've got to make money on the game, that's cool, but if it imbalances the game in any way by being free to play, then it's not. It wouldn't be something I'd be interested in. If someone who paid money into it was able to, get significant advantages over people who didn't pay, the sort of free to play stroke pay to win balancing act is very fine, and it'll be good. It'll be really interesting to see how Sony actually stick with that. While PlanetSide 2 is a game that I very much enjoy, and probably would consider, sort of buying extras for and so forth. At the same time, they've got to keep a level playing field for the people who choose not to do that. Sony are quite, they're quite keen on saying it's not play to win, so it'd be good to see how that turns out. Overall, my thoughts on PlanetSide 2 so far are very positive. I like this game. I like it just as much as I like the first one. Granted, there are a few issues in the game at the moment which I think could be addressed, but I'm also aware that it's quite an early beta, so they have plenty of time to address those issues. Hopefully, when the issues are addressed and the game finally becomes sort of public, on a public release, goes actually for a proper launch, then it's something I can invest a serious amount of time in. It's very good fun, and if you have a PC good enough to run the game, then by all means go over to PlanetSide 2's website and register for the beta, so you can get in and you can sort of sample things that I've been playing over the last week or so. I've found all the experiences in PlanetSide 2 so far fantastic. Okay, with that said, I'd like to thank all you guys for watching and listening for such a long period of time. Let me know what you think of PlanetSide 2 in the comments if you're already playing it. I'll be interested to hear it. Until next time, take care.